I thought my father's will was fair to everyone, but when the lawyer read the real one, my sister's face went white. We'd gathered in the mahogany-paneled office expecting the usual, split evenly between the three of us kids. Dad had promised as much during his final weeks in hospice. Everything equal, he'd wheezed through the oxygen mask. No favorites. The lawyer cleared his throat. To my eldest daughter, Celeste, I leave my entire estate, all holdings, and the family business. My brother dropped his coffee. The ceramic shattered across the Persian rug. To my son, the lawyer continued, I leave the contents of safety deposit box 447 at First National. And to my youngest daughter, he paused, adjusting his glasses, I leave nothing but the truth. Celeste hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. Her knuckles were white against the leather armchair. There must be a mistake, my brother stammered. The lawyer shook his head. There's more. A letter to be read after the monetary distributions. That night, I couldn't stop replaying Celeste's expression. Not surprise, not joy, terror. 3 days later, my brother texted, need to see you, now. I found him in his apartment, surrounded by documents from the safety deposit box. His face was pale. Dad wasn't who we thought he was, he said. He handed me a photograph. 3 children at a beach. One was clearly young Celeste. The other 2 I didn't recognize. The back read, Summer 1987. Before the switch. What switch? I asked. He showed me adoption papers, DNA tests, hospital records, all dated 6 months before Celeste was supposedly born. She's not our sister, he whispered. Dad took her. My blood went cold. Took her from where? The next document answered that. A newspaper clipping, 3-year-old vanishes from park. Parents offer $2 million reward. The photo showed a little girl who looked exactly like Celeste at that age. I drove to Celeste's house at midnight. She answered the door fully dressed, suitcases by the entrance. You know, she said. It wasn't a question. How long have you known? I asked. Since I was 16. Found my real birth certificate in Dad's safe. Her voice was hollow. He told me if I ever said anything, he'd make sure my biological parents thought I was dead. But he's dead now, I said. You're free. She laughed bitterly. Am I? He left me everything for a reason. The business, the properties. They're all built on blood money. He knew I'd have to choose. Expose the truth and lose everything, or keep quiet and live with it. What about your real parents? They died in a car accident 5 years ago, still searching for their daughter. She picked up her suitcases. Where are you going? I asked. To find out who I really am. Dad kept records of other children. Other switches. My phone buzzed. The lawyer. Your father left you something after all. Check your childhood bedroom closet. The floorboard under the window. I raced home, pried up the board. Inside was a metal box containing dozens of photographs. All different children, all with dates and locations on the back. The last photo stopped my heart. It was me at age 2, but the name on the back wasn't mine. My phone rang. Celeste, don't trust anyone, she said. Especially not Mom. Check the date on your photo. I flipped it over. March 1997. Now check when Mom married Dad, Celeste continued. My hands shook as I Googled their marriage certificate. June 1997, 3 months after the photo was taken. She wasn't our mother, Celeste said. She was Dad's accomplice. She helped steal us. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Sweetheart? Mom's voice called. I heard you come in. We need to talk about your father's will. The doorknob turned. Don't let her know you know, Celeste whispered urgently. Act normal. I'm sending help. The line went dead. Mom stood in the doorway, her familiar smile now sinister in the hallway light. Find anything interesting? She asked, her eyes fixed on the photos scattered across my floor. That's when I noticed the syringe in her hand. Time slowed. Every muscle in my body screamed to run, but my legs felt like concrete. The syringe caught the light, clear liquid, needle uncapped. Ready. Mom? I managed, my voice cracking like I was 12 again. Don't call me that. Her voice was flat, cold, nothing like the woman who'd made me chicken soup when I was sick. You know better now. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Celeste said she was sending help, but help from where? The police? How long would that take? The photos, she continued, stepping into my room. Your father was supposed to destroy those years ago. Sentimental fool. Who am I? The question fell out of my mouth. She tilted her head, studying me like I was a puzzle piece she couldn't quite place. You were supposed to be Ashley Morrison, 3 years old. Taken from a grocery store parking lot in Portland while your real mother loaded groceries? She stepped closer. Your parents spent their life savings looking for you. Died broke and heartbroken. The room spun. Ashley Morrison. That name meant nothing to me, but hearing it felt like a punch to the gut. Why? I whispered. Money, obviously. Do you have any idea what people will pay for the right child? Blonde hair, blue eyes, no obvious defects? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your father started small. One child here, one there, but the demand was incredible. I backed toward the window, my hands shaking. The metal box lay open between us. Photographs spilled across my childhood carpet. Evidence of dozens of stolen lives. You can't just kill me, I said. People will ask questions. Suicide, she replied matter-of-factly. You discovered your father's terrible secret. Couldn't live with the guilt of inheriting blood money. Very believable, considering your history with depression. I'd never been depressed, but I realized she'd been building this story for years. All those times she'd told doctors I seemed sad, all those concerned conversations with family friends about my struggles. Celeste got away, I said, hoping to buy time. Celeste was always too smart for her own good, but she made a mistake calling you. We've been tracking her phone for hours. My blood froze. What did you do to her? Nothing yet. She's surprisingly resourceful, but she'll come back for you. She always was protective of her little sister, even though you're not really sisters. The way she said it, like we were just merchandise, made something snap inside me. This woman had raised me, fed me, comforted me when I had nightmares. And it was all a lie. Who else knows? I asked. About the business? Your father's brothers. A few key investors. The lawyers who handled the paperwork. She shrugged. It's more common than you'd think. A network. This wasn't just my father's twisted hobby. It was an organization. The safety deposit box, I realized. You wanted my brother to find it. She smiled, and for a moment she looked like the mother I'd known. He's not actually your brother, you know. Different family, different state. But yes, we needed someone to discover the truth gradually. Creates a more believable timeline for your suicide. Then why give Celeste everything? Because she's the perfect fall guy. The stolen child who inherited the criminal enterprise. When you kill yourself and leave behind a note explaining everything, she'll take the blame for the entire operation. Very neat. My phone, still in my hand, suddenly buzzed with a text. Mom's eyes flicked to it and I saw my chance. I dove sideways, rolling behind my old desk as she lunged forward with the syringe. The needle caught my sleeve, tearing fabric but missing skin. "Help me!" I screamed, hoping neighbors would hear. She was on me immediately, stronger than I'd expected. We struggled on the floor and I could smell her perfume, the same scent I'd found comforting my entire life. The syringe clattered across the hardwood. I scrambled toward it, but she grabbed my ankle, dragging me back. Her nails dug into my skin, drawing blood. "You ungrateful little bitch," she hissed. "Do you have any idea what we gave you? A beautiful life, a loving family, college education, built on kidnapping children." I kicked at her face, connecting with her nose. She yelped and released me. I lunged for the syringe, but she was faster. Her hand closed around it just as sirens wailed in the distance. We both froze. "Celeste," I breathed. Mom's face contorted with rage. She raised the syringe, aiming for my neck. The front door exploded inward. "Police! Drop the weapon!" She hesitated for just a second, long enough for me to roll away. 2 officers charged up the stairs, weapons drawn. "Drop it now!" Mom looked at the syringe in her hand, then at me, then at the photos scattered around us. For a moment, I saw genuine fear in her eyes, maybe even regret. Then she smiled. "You'll never understand what we built," she said calmly, "what we saved you from." Before anyone could react, she plunged the syringe into her own neck. The officers tackled her, but it was too late. Whatever was in that needle worked fast. Her eyes rolled back and she convulsed once before going still. I sat on my bedroom floor, surrounded by the wreckage of my entire life, while paramedics worked frantically to save the only mother I'd ever known. They couldn't. 3 hours later, I sat in a police station conference room, staring at a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. Detective Rodriguez had kind eyes, but I could see the horror in them as she flipped through the photographs from Dad's metal box. "We're going to need you to go through these," she said gently. "Help us identify as many children as possible." I nodded, though the thought made me sick. "What about Celeste?" "Safe. She's the one who called us. Had been watching your house for hours, waiting for backup." Rodriguez leaned forward. "She saved your life. Where is she?" "FBI has her. This is bigger than just your family. We're talking about a trafficking network that's been operating for over 30 years. 30 years. How many children? How many families destroyed? What happens to me now?" Rodriguez's expression softened. "Honestly, I don't know. Legally, you're still you, the identity you've lived your whole life. But there are resources, support groups, therapy. What about the money, the estate? That's complicated. Technically, it's proceeds from criminal activity. But you're also a victim." She closed the photo folder. "There will be lawsuits. Lots of them. Families of the victims will want compensation." I thought about the house I'd grown up in, the college fund that had paid my tuition, every comfort of my childhood purchased with someone else's misery. "I don't want any of it," I said. "You might change your mind. This kind of trauma, it takes time to process." But I was certain. I wanted nothing that came from stolen children. 2 weeks later, I met Celeste at a coffee shop 3 towns over. She looked different, thinner, older. We sat across from each other like strangers, which I guess we were. "How are you holding up?" she asked. I don't know how to answer that. Everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. She nodded. "I've had years to process it. You're just beginning." The FBI agent said you've been helping them identify other victims. 27 children so far, all taken between 1985 and 2010. Her coffee sat untouched. Some of them don't even know. They're living normal lives with families who bought them as babies. The thought was staggering. People out there who had no idea they'd been stolen. Are you going to tell them? I don't know. How do you destroy someone's entire sense of identity to give closure to families who might already be dead? I understood the dilemma. Part of me wished I'd never found that metal box, never learned the truth about Ashley Morrison. "I've been thinking about changing my name," I said, "going back to Ashley." Celeste looked surprised. "Why? It's who I really am, isn't it?" "No, you're who you've always been. A name is just a word. Your experiences, your personality, your relationships, that's what makes you real." She was right, but it didn't make the confusion any easier. "The FBI wants to put us in witness protection," she continued. "There are still people involved who haven't been caught. Dad's brothers, the lawyers, some of the buyers." Buyers? The people who purchased children. Most of them genuinely believed they were going through legitimate adoption agencies, but some knew the truth and paid extra for the discretion. I felt sick. We weren't just victims. We were commodities. "I'm not hiding," I said. "I'm done living lies." Celeste smiled for the first time since we'd sat down. "I was hoping you'd say that." Over the next few months, we became the public faces of the investigation. Our story made national news. Sisters who weren't really sisters, exposing a child trafficking network that had operated in plain sight for decades. The media attention was brutal. Reporters camped outside my apartment. Strangers sent messages claiming to be my real family. Conspiracy theorists accused us of making everything up for money. But good things happened too. A woman in Ohio recognized her daughter in one of Dad's photos. They'd been separated when the girl was 4. Now she was 32, with children of her own. Their reunion made me cry for hours. A man in Texas discovered his deceased son was alive and well, living in California as someone else's child. The son had always felt out of place in his adopted family. Learning the truth explained so much. Not all the reunions were happy. Some families had imploded from the years of searching and grief. Some of the stolen children rejected their biological families, feeling loyal to the people who'd raised them. I understood that conflict intimately. 6 months after Mom's death, I received a letter from Ashley Morrison's aunt, my biological mother's sister. She was the only remaining family member she wanted to meet. I almost didn't go. What was the point? The people who'd grieved for Ashley Morrison were gone. I couldn't bring them back or ease their suffering. But curiosity won. Aunt Patricia lived in a small house in Portland, surrounded by photos of a little girl I didn't recognize, but whose face was undeniably mine. Ashley at 1 year old. Ashley learning to walk. Ashley's 3rd birthday party, the day before she disappeared. You have your mother's eyes, Patricia said, wiping tears from her cheek, but your father's stubborn chin. She showed me more photos. My biological parents on their wedding day. Mom pregnant with me. The whole family at Christmas. They looked happy, normal. Nothing like the elaborate wealth I'd grown up with. They never gave up hope, Patricia continued. Even when the police said you were probably dead, they kept your room exactly the same, celebrated your birthday every year. The guilt was overwhelming. While my real parents had been suffering, I'd been living a privileged life with their daughter's kidnappers. I'm sorry, I whispered. Patricia took my hand. You have nothing to be sorry for. You were a baby. None of this was your choice, but it felt like my choice now. Every day I chose to keep the name and life that had been built on someone else's tragedy. Would you like to see your parents' house? She asked. I almost said no. It seemed too painful, too late. But I found myself nodding. The house was smaller than I'd expected. A modest 2-bedroom in a working-class neighborhood. Patricia had kept it as a memorial, unchanged since my parents died. My childhood bedroom was frozen in time. Pink walls with white furniture, stuffed animals lined up on the bed, a growth chart on the doorframe that stopped at 3 feet tall. On the nightstand sat a framed photo of me, the same photo Dad had kept in his metal box, but this version was different. Loved. The frame was worn smooth from handling. The glass was clean, as if someone had kissed it regularly. I broke down completely. Patricia held me while I sobbed, and for a moment I could almost imagine this was my real mother. The life I should have had. They would have been so proud of you, she said, for surviving, for speaking out, for helping other families find their children. I wanted to believe that, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd failed them by living such a privileged life while they'd died brokenhearted. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I called a press conference. I want to make something clear, I said into the cameras. I didn't expose this trafficking network to be a hero. I did it because I discovered I was living on blood money, and I couldn't continue. I paused, looking directly into the lens. But speaking out isn't enough. I've decided to donate my entire inheritance, every penny from my father's estate, to organizations that help find missing children and support trafficking victims. The reporters erupted with questions, but I continued. Furthermore, I'm establishing the Ashley Morrison Foundation, named after the little girl who was stolen from a Portland parking lot 30 years ago. We'll provide resources for families searching for missing children and support for victims who've been recovered. After the press conference, Celeste found me in the parking lot. That was incredibly stupid, she said. Why? Because now you have nothing. No safety net. No security. I looked at her. This woman who'd been my sister but wasn't my sister, who'd been through hell but still had more strength than anyone I knew. Good, I said. I don't want security that came from stealing children. She stared at me for a long moment, then smiled. Dad underestimated us, didn't he? What do you mean? He thought he could control us even from the grave, make us complicit in his crimes by leaving us his money, force us to choose between comfort and conscience. She was right. Even dead, he'd tried to manipulate us one final time. Well, I said, fuck his plans. Celeste laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from her since this nightmare began. I've made a decision too, she said. I'm donating my inheritance as well. All of it. I stared at her. Are you serious? Dad left me everything because he thought I'd be too scared to speak out. Thought I'd protect the money to protect myself. She shook her head. He didn't know me at all. We stood there in the parking lot. 2 women who weren't really sisters, but had survived the same nightmare. We were broke now, but we were free. The foundation took months to establish. I had to learn about nonprofits and tax law and fundraising. Patricia helped, using her contacts from years of volunteer work with missing children organizations. Celeste moved back to town and took a job as a victim advocate. Her experience navigating the system as a trafficking survivor made her invaluable to other victims. My brother, who still felt like my brother despite everything, decided to become a private investigator specializing in cold cases. The evidence from Dad's safety deposit box had given him a crash course in following paper trails and connecting seemingly unrelated clues. None of us used our original last names anymore. Too much baggage, too many painful associations. I chose Morrison, for the parents who'd never stopped loving a daughter they'd lost. For the little girl who died the day she was stolen, even though her body had kept growing. A year after the foundation launched, we'd helped locate 6 missing children and connected 4 victims with their biological families. It wasn't nearly enough, but it was a start. The media attention had mostly died down, though I still got occasional interview requests from documentarians and true crime podcasters. I turned most of them down. This wasn't entertainment, it was real people's lives. But I agreed to appear on one show, a reunion special featuring families who'd been reunited because of our investigation. Sitting in the studio, watching parents embrace children they'd thought were lost forever, I finally understood something important. I wasn't Ashley Morrison. I wasn't the daughter they'd grieved for 30 years. That little girl was gone, her potential life stolen by monsters who'd seen her as merchandise. But I was something else. Someone new, built from their love and loss, shaped by their memory, carrying forward their hope that missing children could still come home. The reporter asked me the same question everyone asked: do you ever regret speaking out? Giving up your comfortable life? I looked at the families around me, parents and children awkwardly learning to love each other again, siblings trying to bridge decades of separation, grandparents meeting grandchildren for the first time. No, I said. I regret that it took me 27 years to tell the truth, but I'll spend the rest of my life making up for lost time. After the show, a woman approached me. She was about my age with tired eyes and nervous hands. Excuse me, she said quietly. I think I might be one of them, one of the stolen children. My heart clenched. Even now, almost 2 years later, people were still coming forward, still discovering that their entire lives had been built on lies. What makes you think that? I asked gently. I never looked like my family, always felt out of place. Then I saw your story on the news and started asking questions. Her voice was barely a whisper. My parents got defensive, said I was being ridiculous, but I found some old documents in their attic. She handed me a folder. Inside were adoption papers, but not the legitimate kind. These had the same law firm letterhead I'd learned to recognize, the same fake signatures from attorneys who'd been arrested 6 months ago. Another victim, another family destroyed by Dad's network. What's your name? I asked. Rebecca Chen. But I think, she swallowed hard, I think I might be someone else. I took her hand. Would you like to find out? The process was always painful. DNA tests, database searches, interviews with families who'd reported missing children decades ago. Some searches ended with joyful reunions. Others ended with the discovery that birth parents had died, taking their hope with them to the grave. Rebecca's story fell somewhere in between. We found her biological family in Michigan, parents who'd never stopped looking, siblings who'd grown up with her ghost haunting every family gathering. But the reunion was complicated. Rebecca had been taken at age 5, old enough to remember them, but young enough to have formed deep bonds with her adoptive family. Her adoptive parents had genuinely believed they were rescuing an orphan from overseas. When confronted with the evidence, they were horrified. But they were also terrified of losing the daughter they'd raised for 25 years. Rebecca was torn between 2 families, 2 histories, 2 versions of herself. I understood that pain intimately. How do you choose? She asked me during one of our support group meetings. You don't, I said. You figure out how to honor both parts of your story, the little girl who was taken and the woman you became. It wasn't perfect advice. Nothing about this situation was perfect, but it was honest. 3 years after Dad's death, the last of his accomplices was finally arrested. Uncle Thomas had been hiding in Mexico, living off money from the trafficking network. His capture made headlines because he was found with detailed records of over 100 stolen children. 100 children. The scope of what they'd done kept growing. By then, the foundation had helped reunite 32 families and provided support services to over 200 victims. We'd opened offices in 4 states and partnered with law enforcement agencies across the country, but the work was exhausting. Every success was shadowed by tragedy. For every child who came home, there were dozens still missing. For every family reunited, there were others who'd been destroyed by decades of grief. I was burning out. Celeste noticed first. She found me crying in the foundation office at 2 a.m., surrounded by case files and photos of missing children. You can't save them all, she said gently. I know that, but I have to try. Why? Because you think you owe a debt for the life you had? I looked at her. This woman who'd become more of a sister to me than anyone I'd grown up with. Don't you? I used to. But then I realized something. She sat down across from my dad. We were children, victims. We survived something horrible, and we chose to help other people survive it too. That doesn't make us responsible for fixing everything that's broken. She was right. But guilt isn't rational. Every night, I went to sleep thinking about the children still out there, still missing, still hoping someone would find them. You need a break, Celeste continued. When's the last time you did something for yourself? Something that had nothing to do with missing children or trafficking victims? I couldn't remember. Take a vacation, she insisted. Go somewhere peaceful. Let the rest of us handle things for a while. I resisted at first, but she was relentless. Eventually, she booked me a cabin in Montana. No internet, no cell service, no way to obsess over case files. The first few days were torture. I paced the small cabin like a caged animal, convinced that without my constant attention, the foundation would collapse and children would die. But slowly, the silence worked its magic. I remembered what it felt like to think about something other than trafficking networks and missing persons reports. I read novels for the first time in years, took long walks through the forest, slept 8 hours a night without nightmares about stolen children. On my last day there, I received a satellite phone call from Patricia. There's something you need to know, she said. We found a letter from your mother. She wrote it the day you disappeared. My stomach dropped. What kind of letter? To you. To Ashley. In case. Her voice broke. In case they never found you. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. What does it say? I think you should read it yourself. I'm sending it with Celeste. She's driving up to get you. The next few hours crawled by. When Celeste finally arrived, she looked at me with something like pity in her eyes. Are you sure you're ready for this? She asked, holding out an envelope yellowed with age. I wasn't sure. but I took the letter anyway. My dearest Ashley, I'm writing this on the worst day of my life, hoping I'll never have to give it to you. But if you're reading this, it means we found each other again somehow. I want you to know that losing you broke us. Your daddy and I will never be the same. But I also want you to know that we don't blame you for whatever happened. You were just a baby. None of this was your fault. If someone took you and raised you as their own, I hope they loved you. I hope they gave you birthday parties and bedtime stories and helped you with your homework. I hope you felt wanted and safe, even though you weren't with us. I know this might be confusing. You might not remember us. You might love the people who raised you more than the strangers who claim to be your real parents. That's okay. Love isn't something you owe. It's something you feel. All I want is for you to be happy. If you grew up happy, then something good came from this nightmare. If you didn't, then I'm so sorry we couldn't protect you. You don't have to feel guilty for living without us. You don't have to feel guilty for surviving. Just live, sweetheart. Live the biggest, brightest life you can. Make choices that bring you joy. Help people when you can, but don't sacrifice your own happiness to fix things that aren't your responsibility. We love you. We always loved you. Whether you're 3 years old or 30, whether you remember us or not, whether we ever see you again or not, you are loved. Your first mother, Linda Morrison. I read the letter 3 times before I could speak. When I finally looked up, Celeste was crying too. She knew, I whispered. She knew I might never remember her, never love her back, and she was okay with it. She loved you enough to want you to be happy, even if that happiness didn't include her. The letter changed something fundamental in me. The crushing guilt that had driven me for 3 years began to ease. My biological mother, Linda Morrison, had given me permission to live without carrying her pain. But I also realized something else. The work I'd been doing, the foundation, the victim advocacy, the reunions, it hadn't been about guilt or obligation. It had been about love. Love for the children still missing. Love for the families still searching. Love for the survivors still struggling to put their lives back together. And that love didn't require me to destroy myself in the process. When I returned to work, I made changes. I hired more staff, delegated responsibilities, and established boundaries between my personal life and the foundation's mission. I started therapy to deal with my own trauma instead of just focusing on everyone else's. Most importantly, I stopped trying to be Ashley Morrison and accepted that I was someone new entirely, someone shaped by both love and loss, but not defined by either. The foundation continued to grow. 5 years after we'd started, we'd helped over 300 families and supported more than 1,000 survivors. We'd worked with international organizations to combat child trafficking in other countries. We'd lobbied for better laws and improved resources for missing children cases. But the work that meant the most to me was smaller, quieter. The support groups where survivors shared their stories, the therapy programs that helped victims process their trauma, the safe houses where recovered children could adjust to their new realities. Because I'd learned something important. Healing happens one person at a time, one conversation at a time, one small act of kindness at a time. During the Foundation's 5th anniversary gala, I stood at the podium looking out at faces I'd come to know well. Survivors and their families, law enforcement officers who'd become allies, donors who'd chosen to turn tragedy into hope. When I first learned the truth about my childhood, I began. I wanted to give back everything that had been built on blood money. I wanted to erase the life I'd lived and start over as someone else. The room was silent, attentive. But I've learned that you can't erase the past. You can only choose what to do with it. You can let it destroy you, or you can use it to build something better. I paused, thinking about Linda Morrison's letter, about the grace of a mother who'd loved her child enough to want her to be happy, even with strangers. The children we help find aren't coming back to the families they left. Too much time has passed for that. They're meeting for the first time as the people they've become. That can be beautiful, but it's also complicated and sometimes painful. A few people in the audience nodded. They understood. What I've learned from 5 years of reunion work is this. Family isn't just about DNA. It's about choice, about showing up for each other, about loving someone enough to want what's best for them, even when that's hard. I looked at Celeste, sitting in the front row, at my brother, who'd driven in from 3 states away, at Patricia, who'd become like a grandmother to me, at Rebecca Chen, and dozens of other survivors who'd become chosen family. The people who stole us thought they were buying children, but what they actually did was create a community of survivors who understand each other in ways no one else can. They tried to isolate us, but we found each other anyway. The applause was warm, genuine, but what mattered more to me were the tears I saw in the audience. Recognition, understanding, the acknowledgement that we'd all survived something together. After the event, I walked outside to get some air. The city was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt something like contentment. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I think I might be one of the children in your father's photos. Can we talk? I looked at the message for a long moment. 5 years ago, it would have sent me into a panic of urgency. I would have called immediately, stayed up all night researching, driven myself to exhaustion, trying to solve this new mystery. Instead, I took a deep breath and typed back, "Of course. The Foundation offices are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We have counselors who specialize in helping people navigate these discoveries. You're not alone." Then I put my phone away and walked home to the small apartment I'd bought with money I'd earned myself, to the life I'd built without blood money or stolen identity. I wasn't Ashley Morrison, the little girl who'd been taken from a Portland parking lot. I wasn't the daughter who'd grown up in a mansion built on trafficking money either. I was someone new, someone who'd chosen to take the worst thing that had ever happened to her and use it to help other people find their way home. It wasn't the life anyone had planned for me, but it was mine, and it was enough. As I unlocked my door, I thought about Linda Morrison's letter one more time. Her wish for me to live the biggest, brightest life I could, to help people when I could, but not to sacrifice my own happiness trying to fix things that weren't my responsibility. I'd finally learned how to do both. Tomorrow there would be another survivor reaching out for help, another family hoping for news about a missing child, another impossible situation that needed both professional expertise and human compassion. But tonight, I was just a woman who'd survived something terrible and chosen to use that survival to build something good. I was someone who'd learned that love, real love, isn't about possession or control or blood relation. It's about showing up, about choosing each other, again and again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I turned on the lights in my apartment and saw photos covering my refrigerator. Not stolen children or missing persons reports, but pictures of chosen family. Celeste at her college graduation, getting her degree in social work at 35. My brother on his wedding day, marrying a wonderful woman he'd met through his investigation work. Patricia teaching art classes to kids at the community center. Rebecca Chen with her biological siblings at their first Christmas together. Marcus Williams, another trafficking survivor, at the opening of his law practice specializing in victim advocacy. Dr. Fitzgerald, the therapist who'd helped me understand that healing wasn't linear. Dozens of people whose lives had intersected with mine through tragedy, but who'd chosen to stay connected through hope. This was what family looked like when you built it yourself. Messy and complicated, and not at all what anyone had planned, but real in ways that blood and law could never be. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down at my kitchen table, where I'd left Linda Morrison's letter. I reread it one more time, as I did whenever I needed reminding that love could survive anything, even the worst kind of loss. Then I wrote my own letter. To the little girl who'd been stolen 30 years ago. To the woman I'd become. To all the children still missing and all the families still searching. We can't change what was taken from us, I wrote. But we can choose what we do with what remains. It was a good life. Hard-won and honestly earned and built on choices rather than circumstances. It was enough. More than enough. It was mine.